Hey guys, in this video I'll be talking about polymorphism, where I'll be implementing these two classes. The top one is a parent class and the bottom one is a child class. So I made it easier by naming these classes parent and child, so that it's easier to understand that the child has been inherited from our parent class, which means that it has access to some of its public methods inside of a child class, or when you define a child object, it can still access some of these public methods of the parent. Alright, so if you don't already have an understanding of inheritance, first I recommend you to go ahead and watch my previous video and get an idea on inheritance, and that will clear things up for this video as well. But if not, you can go ahead and continue and then check it out later. But yeah, I'll start with the definition of polymorphism. So what exactly is polymorphism in simple English terms? In simple English terms, polymorphism basically means that there are more than one forms of something, right? And it's a similar idea in programming, where we will define more than one forms of a method. In programming, there are two types of polymorphism. First one is a compile time polymorphism, and the second one is a runtime polymorphism. So compile time polymorphism basically involves method overloading, something called method overloading, which I'll be showing you in this video when I demo it. And then the second one is the method overriding, which also I'll be showing you when I demo it, like I said. But you might be wondering, what is the difference between compile time and runtime? So basically, compile time is when you are writing the code, and the code, basically the compiler decides which method you're calling upon, and that happens when you're writing the code. But runtime is when you actually run the program, and that's when it's deciding which method to run based on precedence, right? So let's say if you have a method in child and that also appears in the parent, you'd want to run the method that was defined in the child, right? And not the one in the parent, because it has been overridden. So that's basically the idea behind overriding. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and code. So here I'm going to create our two classes, parent.java and then our child.java. And let's define public class parent and then public class child. But the child extends from the parent, so we have to say extends and parent. When we say extends, it means that it inherits from the parent, which means that it will have some of its public methods. Some of the public methods that are defined in parent, the child object can access it. And that's basically inheritance in simplest terms. I can define it for you. Alright, so let's go ahead and implement our two methods from our parent class. So last name and address. There's going to be public void get last name, and then let's print out the last name. System.out.println. The last name of the parent is, let's say, Smith, semicolon. And then we are also going to define our address, get address method. Spelled address wrong. Okay. System.out. Ooh, a lot of typos. Println. And then we're gonna say our address is 123 some street drive. Add a semicolon. Now I'm not going to define any methods in our child object to show you basic idea behind inheritance, right? So we're going to create a child object in our main. We say child. Our child's name, let's say it's Mike. And then we say new child. Right? Using the Mike object, which is an instance of child class, right? We can still access some of the parent public parent methods, right? And that's the basic idea behind inheritance. So we can say get address, and it would still print out our parent's address. As you see right here, the address was never defined in the child, but it exists in the parent, and the child extends from our parent class, and that's what allows us to access this method, which comes from our parent. And that's basic idea behind inheritance. Next, I'm going to show you method overriding. Alright, so for method overriding, I'm going to show you the same address method as it appears in the parent class, and we'll redefine it in our child class, but it will have a different behavior as compared to what's currently in the parent, right? Let's go ahead and do that. We already have this get address method in here, so we're just going to copy it and we're going to paste it in our child class. Notice that it has the same implementation. It should also have the same parameters if you were to pass in any parameters, and yeah, it should also have the same return type, but this our method is a void, so it doesn't matter here. Yeah, it should be the same signature to override a specific parent method in a child class. So here, let's say our kid turned 18 and he got kicked out of the house, and he hasn't reported any new address. Or we say he's homeless, right? So kid's address is homeless. Now when I run this, you'll see it update, and that's basically method overriding. See right here, we overrode this get address method, which appears in our parent class, and wrote it again in our child class. And that's what basically method overriding is, in simplest terms. Right? Method overridden. So that's method overriding. Now I'm going to show you method overloading. Alright, now let's talk about method overloading. Method overloading is when you have the same method defined in the same class again, but with different set of parameters. And it should also have the same return type. If you have another method with a different return type and you name it set height, that wouldn't work. It would throw an error. So without further ado, let me give you a demo of set height. It takes in a double, and that is a child. So we're gonna say public void set height of our child, and what was the parameter? So okay, first one takes in a double, let's say height. So the user is going to pass in a height using this method, and we will not actually set it. We'll just print the height that they passed. Height is gonna be height. And then we'll have a same method redefined again in the same class, but now with a different set of parameters. So we're gonna say int feet and int inches. And now this one prints the height in terms of feet, and then we can put an apostrophe. You can say inches. So you see how this method, same method name, but with different parameters, and that's what overloading is. Method overloading is when you have the same method, but it takes in different when you have the same two or more methods, but it takes in different parameters. Alright, so that's method overloading. Now let's use one of these methods in our main class. So we're going to say Mike.set height. For this one, we'll pass in double. So this one, let's assume this is in centimeters. right, 163.33 centimeters. Give it a unit, centimeters, and then feet, and inches. Awesome. So now I passed in a double into our height method, and it should set it. It should invoke this one. It should invoke the top one, right? Let's run it. See what happens. Right, as you can see, it invokes the top one. Now let's say I pass in two integers. So let's say our guy is 5 feet and 5 inches tall. When we pass this in, the second one it invokes, right? The second one runs. So that's method overloading for you. It's very neat. The program decides which method to run based on the parameters you pass in. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. Thank you for bearing my voice and staying up with me. See you in the next video. Goodbye.